Dr. Lee Voulters is a neurologist affiliated with multiple hospitals along our hometowns on the Gulf Coast. Received his medical degree from Royal Free Hospital, University College London Medical School, past president of the Mississippi State Medical Association. And I'll tell you how long it's been since Dr. Voulters and I have been together on this network. I don't think this technology of video was even available the last time I talked to you at the rate it is now. Good morning, sir. How are you? It's good to have you.
Good morning. It's good to be here. Good to be here.
I am amazed, and again, I wanted to talk about the Queen first of all, and your thoughts. And you were watching this. Some of the thoughts that went through your life experiences and your thought process when you found out that she had passed away.
Well, I mean, my whole life she's been my queen, and the thing that surprised me most was how upset I was. I knew I'd be upset when the Queen died, but I was much more upset than I thought I'd be. I mean, I shed some tears. It was I really was very, very upset about it. And I think from the outpouring of sympathy and condolences, I think a lot of people felt the same way.
Was it because she was such a part of your childhood, your life? And was that mixed in where you were not happy about who was going to take over as far as King Charles is concerned?
No, I don't think that. I mean, I think it goes back to what the royal family means to Great Britain and to the country, and I think it gives a certain character, a sense of pride, a sense of identity that we would not have if it was a republic. You know, I mean, she's the head of state. Yeah. The king or queen is the head of state, not the head of government, but the head of state. And I think that shapes so much character and so much tradition that you know, we're very proud of that. We're very proud of that tradition. And I think without a queen or a king as head of state, I think we'd have a very different character.
70 years ago when she became queen, of course, there was no social media like it is today. And social media has been an avenue, a platform for people to make some of the most horrendous comments. And they're still out there. And people, it's one of those things that I don't think many Americans who know a lot about what's going on and the monarch and the queen and the king and all of the things that happen there, they don't hold it with any respect. And I think it has been kind of enlightening to see how much those people who decided to spout on social media were immediately put down. As a matter of fact, there's one just a few seconds ago from Kevin Sorbo, who just put out from a lady named Sophie Cochran. She said, "Dear Americans who mock us for mourning our beloved queen, she dedicated her entire life to her duty and our country, even just 2 days before her death. You mourned a man who pointed a gun at a pregnant woman by burning cities to the ground." So the people who understood the respect of that have not died down. Your thoughts?
I think that's so true. I mean, she was a true icon. I mean, she was above politics. You know, she was stuck. She had such incredible strength of character. You know, just so touching. Even at the age of 14, she wanted to speak to children during the Second World War to just tell them that she was with them. You know, at 21, before she was queen, she said, "I'm going to devote my life, however long or however short, to service." And she did. And she took that incredibly seriously. That was the most important thing to her, you know, her family and her service to her country. And she just set an amazing example. Yeah, she was the most famous woman in the world, arguably the most famous person in the world. And she set this incredible example through adversity, you know, through all sorts of personal tragedies, you know, through tragedies and bad experiences and good experiences for the country and the world. But she was always there. She was that steady rock. She was the rock for which, you know, the United Kingdom rested on for so long, as our current Prime Minister said. And it's so true. It's so true. She transcended all that. She transcended social media. Yep.
Dr. Lee Voulters is my guest this morning. Now you take a look at what the news is, and I was checking this morning. Now will they or will they not be called Prince Archie or Princess? Is it Lilibet or Lilibet? I think it is. It all depends on King Charles, and I think that's the narrative that's going on today in the news across the news media today. As for the attributions of Royal Highness, I think that's gone as far as Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. But what's your take on that?
Yes, I mean, of course, this is the latest controversy or talking points. Two things. One is, how's King Charles going to fill his mother's shoes? And I think he's done a very good job. I think the country, who were waiting to see how he would do, are very supportive of him at the moment. But then the question is, what's going to happen? I mean, this has been devastating to the royal family and the country. Since the Oprah Winfrey interview, etc. And yes, the latest is that King Charles is holding back on whether he's going to allow the Harry and Meghan's children to be called HRH, His and Her Royal Highness, which is obviously the ultimate in terms of being recognized as an inner circle royal member. And so
he can actually hold off on actually them being called Prince and Princess.
It's his call. Yep. As the monarch, as the king, it's his call whether he will allow them to have that HRH title. Yes. Just it was the Queen's call whether she was going to allow King Charles's wife Camilla to be the Queen consort, and it was only relatively recently that she allowed that to occur.
You never know what goes on the inside. How much of this is the Daily Mail or the news media in the publications out there? Well, there was one publication this morning said that Meghan Markle thought she would go over there and become the Beyonce of England. The worst thing she could probably do is have a podcast, which every word is probably hinged on, and she opens herself up to a lot of criticism on that. But you think this is going to be settled one way or the other?
I think it is. I think the popular view is that it doesn't look too good for Harry and Meghan at the moment. I think this book is huge. If this book comes out in any form, and from all accounts, it's going to say a lot of things that a lot of people don't want it to say. I think he's, I think he's really going to be estranged. And, a lot of people think that King Charles is probably going to be tougher on him than even the Queen would have been. I mean, it's his father. And, I think he's very angry. Yeah. King Charles is very angry at the moment with what's going on. That's the take from the popular press in the UK.
Doc, was that the first time they were back over there during the funeral for a long time, or do they go back and forth from here to there? I think
it was. I mean, I think it was the first time for quite a while, yeah. I think
and those
King Charles, yeah.
And those kids got to grow up. Well, we've got a delay here, and we're going back and forth on it. We'll work that out and take care of that one. And I want to ask you some things about medical marijuana too. Got to, since you're a neurologist, because I haven't tapped into your brain on that one. And also a soundbite, if we have a chance to stick it in. Time is limited with Dr. Lee Voulters, neurologist from our hometown on the coast. Also past president of the Mississippi State Medical Association. More with the good doc coming up right after this. The appropriate music for our guest, Dr. Lee Voulters. One thing, explain this one to me, Doc. The King Charles will not be formally coronated until next summer. Why would it take that long? Why is that traditionally how you do it?
Yes, that exactly is right. Well, there has to be an appropriate, respectful time of honoring and separation between the monarch that died and the new monarch, and it's at least 6 months. It's at least 6 months. That's the tradition. My understanding is. So I have a suspicion. I don't know this for a fact. It may very well be close to when his mother was crowned. But that's just me. But we'll see. That would be. I think it's in April, next April. So maybe.
How do you? Final thought on this one. How do you think this is going to change in the future with the new generation taking over, with a large swath of immigrants who are now in the UK? How do you think the royal family is going to change for the next generation?
That's a great question. You know, I still have very close ties to the UK. All my family are there. My 3 grandchildren are there. My daughter, my brother. And so I go over there a lot. I think that there's a character amongst the UK, and I think we'll see King Charles subtly change. He was a lot closer in some respects to the people. The Queen and she did keep her distance somewhat. King Charles, you can already see already, you know, he goes into the crowd and he shakes hands and he walks around them. The Queen never did that. And certainly no criticism. Certainly, she did things her way. So I think he's somewhat closer, and I think he's a lot more grassroots, worrying about employment. And I think that this will be a big center. He cannot be in as close to those things that he was so interested in as he was before. But I think he'll get his group around him to carry on his charitable work. He was very big on this Prince's Trust, which will keep going, which was all about underprivileged people, getting them employment and education, etc. He'll carry that on. Of course, he's big on climate control. But I think, you know, as you said, this new generation of people, the monarchy and the royal family, I think, will forge closer links rather than distance themselves from it.
I got to just ask you on a personal basis, did you hear that Don Lemon interview with the royal reporter, and I think her name was Hillary Fortwich? And the reason I ask you that, it's only a minute and 20 seconds, but this statement may go down to be one of the death knells to the woke culture in the United States of America, issued by a British lady who is a reporter. And if you haven't heard this, you've got to hear it, so I want to play it real quick.
Those who are asking for reparations for colonialism, and they're wondering, you know, $100 billion, $24 billion here and there, $500 million there. Some people want to be paid back, and members of the public are wondering, why are we suffering when, you know, you have all of this vast wealth? Those are legitimate concerns.
Well, I think you're right about reparations in terms of if people want it, though, what they need to do is you always need to go back to the beginning of a supply chain. Where was the beginning of the supply chain? That was in Africa, and when across the entire world, when slavery was taking place, which was the first nation in the world that abolished slavery? The first nation in the world to abolish it, it was the British. In Great Britain, they abolished slavery. 2,000 naval men died on the high seas trying to stop slavery. Why? Because the African kings were rounding up their own people. They had them on cages waiting in the beaches. No one was running into Africa to get them. And I think you're totally right. If reparations need to be paid, we need to go right back to the beginning of that supply chain and say who was rounding up their own people and having them handcuffed in cages. Absolutely, that's where they should start. And maybe, I don't know, the descendants of those families where they died in the high seas trying to stop the slavery, that those families should receive something too, I think, at the same time.
It's an interesting discussion. Thank you very much.
It left Don Lemon speechless, and as a matter of fact, I think he's still speechless now because of that. Let me switch over. We don't have a lot of time here, but medical marijuana will be the rule. Will be in retail stores soon, from the Gulf Coast all the way up to the Tennessee line and everywhere else. Your thoughts as we get into this, as far as your profession as a neurologist, and I'd love to get you back on a little bit later on to talk more in depth on this. With just a little bit of a synopsis on this from your part.
Yeah, you know, I as a neurologist, I mean, I think there are selective diagnoses and patients that may benefit from medical marijuana. There are studies which show patients with seizures may be helped with marijuana, and there are cannabis FDA-approved cannabinoid products already on the market. I think it's very selective, though. I'm really very much against everyone getting marijuana. I think it's a bad thing, but I think it was carefully controlled, as it's going to be in Mississippi through the Department of Health. both providers and patients have to register with the Department of Health. And I think I think that's the way to do it, to control it. But just selectively, yes. I mean, there are marijuana receptors in the brain. It's helpful for anxiety. It's helpful for seizures and certain other things like that. Nausea, for instance, yes.
So you've seen that in your practice as far as schizophrenia or things like that?
I'm not familiar with the data on schizophrenia, but certainly it's been.
I'm sorry. I meant seizures.
Seizures, yes. Especially childhood seizures. There's been some very severe refractory childhood seizures, something called Lennox-Gastaut, where there's been some research which show that cannabinoid products, especially products which actually are FDA approved and are on the market now, but these are a very small percentage of patients, a very selective group that may be helped with that particular diagnosis.
It's always good talking to you. Don't be a stranger. When are you headed back across the pond?
Well, I'm trying to work out now. My daughter who lives over there is my social director, so she tells me when I can come over and visit the grandchildren. So hopefully very shortly.
Very good. Thank you, Doc. I appreciate it, sir. And gear up for cruising the coast because it'll be here before you know it. It's always good to talk to you.